So a couple of weeks ago, I asked you guys on Instagram as well as here on YouTube, which one of these designs you would like to see made. All of the designs are based on the idea of transparency and light structures. Thank you guys for voting and expressing your opinions. I really appreciate it. The majority of votes were for this design right here. This was also my favorite, so I was just really happy that you guys selected it and I got to make it. By the way, if you're new here, my name is Henny and this is Studio Henny's. So as I mentioned, I wanted to play with transparency because I had a lot of leftover tulle from the Met Gala video that I created a few months ago. By the way, you can watch that video right after this one. I also wanted to carry on the subject of my last video where we were exploring structural shapes and silhouettes. So I thought it would be nice, to combine it and just try to create something that is structural, but also is quite light. It feels really light and it is light. So maybe let's look at the inspiration that I had and also let's have a little walkthrough of the sketch. So here is the design in question, and basically it's going to have like a bustier underneath with a bra cup, and it's going to have this transparent mermaid shape skirt. This is also going to be in tulle, so it's all going to be see-through with some ruched gathered hem that is just coming from above the knee. And it's going to have like a little panties underneath. I'm going to explain the purpose of this, but it's also like a design feature. And then there is going to be this structural piece on top that is going to sort of like revolve around the body and just go all the way to the back with some frilled details on the edges. So if you look at the inspiration that I got, I just really liked this one where you can see the structural elements and it's part of the design. I liked how you can, see the channeling of the boning and things like that. Also here on this reference from Schiaparelli. Also, this sort of served the overall silhouette for the gown. And as you can see, another Schiaparelli reference here, where there is this idea of like structure but lightness to it because of the lace, because of the fabric that is being used. And also, some elements of this ruched, well, in this case, this is like chiffon, but I'm going to use the tulle, obviously. So there are some elements of this ruching on the front of the design, as you could see, and also just like the overall feel where how the hem is going to hang. It was really like informed by this Yves Saint Laurent reference here. By the way, guys, this is a Milanote. This application, like you can access it online. It's not sponsored or anything, but I just really like it. I usually have my inspiration boards put together in this app. You can, I mean, it's got so many features, but I'm using it in a very simple way. Just put all my inspirations, all the like the keywords that I just want to try to focus on. They have like a free version where you can have like a set amount of images uploaded. So usually I just create a board, and when I'm done with the project, I just delete the board and I just start another one. But obviously they have paid versions as well. So anyway, if you want to check it out, I'm gonna link it in the description. All right, guys, let's make a gown. And as usual, I'm gonna be working on my half scale dummy. So I started off with mapping out the bustier shape. So I used, well, it's not a draping tape, it's more like a washi tape, but I prefer to use this. It's sticky, but it's not too sticky. Anyway, don't want to go into the details. But so I was just using the tape to map out the seam lines that I want to have, also the style lines that I want to have. So I started with the tape because I needed to drape something really form-fitting. This is a bustier corset, so it's just going to be easier for me to shape the bust cup area as well. And I'm just going to have all the seam lines correct straight away, hopefully. So after that, I started draping. So I just started to position my pieces of fabrics along the seam lines that I already marked. And just cutting some excess away on the way, and yeah, just gradually building it up next to each other. I will have some overlapping pieces, but I'm just going to mark it with a pencil later. So as you can see, I'm just building this corset up step by step. And then I moved on to the bust area. So as I said, this type of draping is just going to give me an opportunity to have the close fitting fit already. So normally this is not the way I drape. I know a lot of people use draping tapes. I don't normally use a draping tape. I do like to have, you know, have like a top draped on the dummy straight away, like the whole piece, and just draw my style lines. But this time it just seemed like the route to go. So that's why I'm doing it this way. And obviously this method works really well when it's like coming to corsetry and stuff. So here you can see just I'm just drawing my lines and just marking, you know, some notches and things like that already, and just going around the whole dummy. As I go, I'm already like taking pieces off so I can just trace it off later. Again, I'm marking notches. Make sure you mark the notches while you are draping. That's going to help you a lot. I'm just adjusting the neckline there a little bit. And again, just marking the underbust line, the waistline, and just all the intersecting seams. And here we go. So here you can see all the pieces that came off of the dummy. So I'm just going to cut around and just position them on the pattern paper so I can quickly trace them and just true my lines, you know, just making sure that all the lines are smooth. And also just matching the seams and making sure that my notches are matching. Obviously at this point it might need a little bit of adjustment, and just writing the name of the pieces. Always mark your pieces so you don't get confused. And here you can see I'm just already adding some seam allowances because I want to do a quick mock-up of this, and I don't know why I cut them out before I added the seam allowances, so it was a little bit of a struggle to adding the seam allowances on these little pieces of paper. Anyway, so I started to cut the pieces out properly so I can make this said mock-up that I'm going to use for draping the rest of the dress, and also, you know, just checking the seam lines and the style lines and if the fit is right. So after I've got the bustier, I did have like slight adjustments on the bustier, but nothing major, so I didn't record it. It's literally just adjusting the top of the cup and just lowering the neckline. So after that I moved on to draping the skirt. So I just positioned everything at the center front and to the side and just created some darts and marked the side seam. and just cutting some excess fabric away. So the thing with the skirt is that I wanted to have a quite tight look. So it's well, the skirt is going to have like this mermaid shape essentially, but so it's going to go quite tight towards the knee, and then the rest of the flare is going to be like some ruche, like tulle pieces. But for now we are just doing the upper part, and I just want to make sure that it goes quite narrow towards the knee area. So here I already have the back, and I'm just cutting the excess on the hem, and I'm going to work on the side seam a lot just to have this desired shape. So at the next step, I was marking my seam lines because it's also going to have this slanted seam lines on the front, as opposed to having the darts actually. So the darts are going to move into this seam. And as you can see, I'm adjusting the side seam because I feel like it was not narrow enough towards the knee. So I'm just pinning the side seams a little bit more closed, and I'm just readjusting the side seam that it's going to be. So the dress itself is also going to have like a built-in little panties on the inside. It's very good to structure gowns like this with a built-in sort of like a bodysuit, because it helps you with anchoring the dress, especially when you have like a structural thing going on. Just it helps you to keep things in place when someone is moving around, so your dress is not gonna start moving up and down on the torso, but it's just gonna keep everything in place. So I designed a little panties that is gonna be like, it's part of the design because the skirt is quite see-through, but it also helps in terms of structure. So the draping process is very straightforward. You just need to kind of drape it as if you would with a skirt, but then you should have the panty line shaping around the thighs, and just you make sure that your crotch length, which is your measurement from front waist to center back waist, is correct. And then you have little panties done. And then I moved on to this structural shape. I wanted this one piece that kind of revolves around the waist, like it's just the whole piece revolves around the waist and it goes up and down in a way. So that's what I started to do. It's going to be like folded at the waist, if you can see. I'm not sure, like I think if you visually can just like see it now instead of me trying to explain what I'm doing, that's going to be much better. And then I also started to just create the shape. So I just started to draw on that piece of fabric the shape that I wanted to achieve. It's always again, it's a lot of trial and error. You just need to be brave about it and not worrying about making mistakes. You can always add a little bit of fabric back, which I'm going to do soon because I cut a little bit too much away. But yeah, at this point, that's how this is going. So I'm just cutting the basic shape out and just always looking at the design and just comparing it to what I'm doing. It's also, it's good not to just get lost and just also see if it's actually true to the design that you want to achieve. Yeah, I spent quite a bit of time on this because I just wanted to make sure, because that's like the main feature of the dress. So I wanted to make sure that this is really correct. Yeah, so it's one thing also like looking at the design, but then sometimes you also like obviously need to see the final results, because maybe something looks really nice in an illustration, but then it's not great in real life. So yeah, go and adjust it. Like, who cares about that sketch, in the long run? The point is that it needs to look good in the end of the day. And here we're just adding adding a little bit of extra because I cut a little bit too much away. Yeah, I felt like proportionally that piece was a little bit too small compared to the body. So, you know, I want this to be like a dramatic piece. Right, so I've got most of the elements done. So I've got the, you know, the skirt, the little panties that go underneath, and I have this as well. I am quite happy with the shape now. So what I'm going to do is just I'm going to prepare some elements that are going to be part of the design. Like I want this to be like a little mini frill here on the edge, and obviously I want to have a little bit of draping here, and also I have some elements on the hem of the skirt that I want to try. So I'm gonna start preparing that before I actually go on to like cut the whole thing. Obviously, I think this is going to feel much lighter because that is going to be in the tulle. So you're going to actually, you know, see through it a little bit. Yeah, so just want to see some design details, how they work. So let's do that. All right, guys, just a quick pause as usual. If you got this far, thank you so much for watching. And don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment. I love reading your comments, so please do that. Or all of them at the same time. Like, I'm not judging here anybody, you know. But most importantly, watch the video to the end. And also don't forget to look inside the description because I always have some goodies there. I have my free PDF of how to drape a basic bodice blog, which is a really great starting point if you want to just get in there and just like try to start draping. And then I also have like a pattern cutters checklist that's useful if you want to start a new design and just like have a quick, you know, checklist of things that you need to think about before you start a new style. Quite handy. All right, guys, let's get back to the dress. So I started to prepare those set elements. Basically, I started with preparing the strips of frill that I want to create. So I just cut strips of fabric that I actually just gathered with the machine. You want to make sure when you do something like this that you have your stitch length highest possible. So it's going to help you with the gathering process. So the stitching is quite loose, so you can always gather it up. So I wanted the frill to be quite densely gathered. So once I got the desired look, I just added a securing stitch. So I just run the machine through it so it's all secured and it's not gonna move. So once I got that, I just started to play around with this little sample that I created. And so the good thing about this is you start to visualize how this design is going to come together. I also started to attach a few pieces of the tulle on the hem, and you see immediately I saw that the shape of this structured element was not enough because I needed to add a bit more. So when I attached the frill, it looked like quite small, so I felt like it needed a bit more volume. So once I was happy with all the shapes, I started to take this structured piece off of the dummy, just marking the waistline and also marking where the actual fold line is. So a few people are asking how to take the drape off after draping. Even though I feel the videos are quite detailed, the most simple explanation would be that after your drape is done, you mark all your seam lines and dart positions, and then you take it off of the dummy, clean the lines that you marked, and trace the pieces onto your pattern paper. Then you cut it in the desired fabric and stitch it. I think once you try it yourself, you will understand the process a lot better. Don't be afraid of trying because you think you don't know how to do it right, or you are not sure if you're doing it right. I think the best way of learning is doing. So here is the piece, the structural piece that I just taken off of the dummy. So the next step is to trace it onto the pattern paper and just making sure that I got my lines cleaned up. And I just have like, you know, smooth shapes all around and just adding some seam allowance. And the next thing is I marked some boning positions where it would help with holding the shape of this element. So I'm just going to need a boning going all the way across this piece and also right at the front where it stands up. And the next step was cutting everything out. So for the bust cup area and also the little knicker part, I decided to use this really nice satin back crepe that I had in ivory. So that part is not going to be see-through, but it's going to be in this nice ivory. So the next step is cutting the tulle parts, and it's very important, guys, when you work with tulle, you want to block the stretch. So you want to cut one piece along the grain and then another piece across the grain. I put 4 layers now, as you could see, because I'm cutting a pair. And you can build the layers like so, as many you think you need. I only needed like 2 layers for this half-scale version of this dress. You could also have an underlay paper underneath this and also in between your pair layers. So later when we are going to create the stay stitch, it's just going to allow you to be more accurate. In this occasion I didn't use an underlay paper because the pieces are very tiny, so I just skipped that step, but it's just a good tip for you if you want to do something with tulle, because it tends to stretch if you don't have an underlay paper and you don't do the stay stitching. I'm going to show you how that stay stitch looks like in a minute. So for the hem of the skirt, I didn't make a pattern. I literally just measured the length I wanted and I cut a bunch of layers of this triangle piece that I'm going to attach to the hem of the skirt. Yeah. And then I started to prepare my cut pieces with a stay stitch. Basically just stitching the pieces together that I cut along the grain and across the grain. A stay stitch is to prevent stretching. This is to replace fuse tape. So if you had an underlay paper, you would stitch through the paper and then later you could rip it away. As I mentioned, I skipped the underlay paper part, but here is the stay stitch and how it looks. And then I moved on to creating the bust cups and also just stitching the corset parts together and also, you know, creating some boning channels, which is going to be also in this satin back crepe in ivory. So it's going to be like a feature on the design. So for the boning, I used one of these just general plastic bonings, and I needed to cut them into narrow pieces because the original width would be like a 1 cm one. So I needed to cut them into smaller pieces so it would fit this little corset. And the top edge of the top is just going to be bound with satin back crepe again. So for the structural piece, I'm going to cut 1 layer of crin. This is like a quite sturdy mesh that holds the shape very well, but it's quite light still. They use this in, like, you know, big skirts and whatnot, like as an understructure. And then I started to build the bonings on top of it. I used like a zigzag stitch because I didn't want the filaments to come out, because I also needed to cut these into more like narrow pieces. And so I just wanted to make sure that they hold. And then I cut 2 layers of tulle, one for the inside, one for the outside, just to make sure that it's, you know, like it's a smoother surface. And again, I just stitched around the piece just to secure it. And then I started to kind of like freestyle drape this drape layer on this structured piece. So I'm doing everything flat and There is no plan here as usual because I love to do things like that. So I'm just gonna freestyle it and started draping and see what I liked and just playing around with it and then hoping that I can mirror it to the other side. Because that's the tricky bit. Like one side is beautiful and then you go to the other side and okay, what am I gonna do now? I need to mirror it. But no pattern, right? Because I freestyle. So, well, it's one way of working. Tell me guys, is there anyone else out there doing this like that? Anyway, so I just draped on this flat piece, and then once it was done, you know, I just cut around it and just secured it with a stitch. And here it is. So I'm just gonna stitch around it to secure it. So next up was creating the little frill bits. I've done so many. It needed so many strips. I'm pretty sure I cut around like, I don't know, like 20 pieces. Because I wanted to have it like both sides, so on the front and on the back side of the structure as well. And it does, like a long strip doesn't make up that long of a piece, if that makes sense. So that's it, that's all you can get out. Quite tiny. Okay, so here we have a knicker. I'm just trying to make sure that it sits quite nice and smooth after putting the binding on it. So let's go through all the pieces. I have the corset. There's going to be another half, I promise. And we have the little panties that is going to get attached to the corset. We have a skirt that is still missing some hem elements. And we have this structured design element. It's also still missing a few things, but it's getting there. So this is the finish line, guys. I'm just putting all the skirt pieces, like these hem elements, to the dress at super speed. So this is how it's gonna look. Quite cute. It's got some movement for sure. And preparing just a few more of the frill because you know, it's never ending. I was just making these frilly bits like crazy. And then I attached all of them to the structured bit. And this structured element is just gonna get stitched to the waistline. And that's it. And a few tucks just to hold it in place.